Okay, in this video, I'm going to go over the homework for 6.1, Part 1, Angle Measures and Triangles. Okay, it says determine the measure of an angle described in the 6 problems below. Okay, I need alpha to be a complement, so that means it has to sum to 90 degrees of a 12.5 degree angle. So that's going to be 77.5 degrees. And I said 90 minus 12.5 degrees. And that is how I got my 77.5. Beta, on the other hand, has to be a supplement. That's 180. So if I say 180 minus 149.2, I am going to get 30.8. Okay, here I drew out the angle for you. So you have to recognize that this first one, you're looking for a complement. And this is phi. Okay, so is that true? Let me just glance someplace right now. Yep, that looks good. Okay, so what I need to know is what is the missing angle. And the missing angle is going to be 90 minus 37 degrees. So that missing angle is going to be 53 degrees. Okay, the next one, the way I drew it, and I should probably have this be 2, since it's going to be different angles. Here's my theta, and I need to say 180 minus 49, and that makes this 131 degrees. Okay, now instead of having it be a complement or this is a supplement, I'm going to write this down so that you can see this, and you should write it down for yourself as well. Now I have triangles. So triangles sum, that's the Greek for sum, to 180 degrees. So that means, this is gamma, by the way, so that's gamma. If I'm looking for a missing angle, then I'm going to have to say 180, because that's my sum, minus 53, and then minus 58. That gives me the missing angle value of 69 degrees. And because all those angles are less than 90, this is an acute triangle. Just mentioning that. Okay, so a couple of things are going on with F. First off, it's a right triangle. If you have a right triangle, then you know that these two angles, and this is going to be psi, PSI, then these two angles right here, this one and this one, are going to be complementary. And all three angles sum to 180. So you can either say, here's your options. You can say 180 minus 90 minus 65 equals, and then you get a number, and that number is going to be 28 degrees. Or you can say 90 minus 65. Okay, wait, something's not right. So, oh, I'm so sorry, it's 25 degrees. So let me erase this so I don't lose my head. This is 25 degrees. Okay, so that's 25 degrees. Or you can just say 90 minus 65. In any event, you will get 25 degrees both ways. Okay, so that's always going to be 25 degrees. Whether you recognize that the two non-right angles, the two remaining angles, are complementary, or if you just memorize that in a triangle you have 180, in any event, you'll get a missing angle equal to 25 degrees. Okay, now this is kind of an interesting question. It says determine whether the two angles listed are coterminal. So coterminal means they must have the same beginning and end, right? So what you can do is you can look at the first angle, the smaller of the two. So take your 70, and if you add 360 to that 70, I'm getting 430 degrees. So I can say, yes, these two are coterminal. Now, if you take 155 and you add 360, what are you going to get? So 155 plus 360, that's giving me 515. Now, don't be discouraged yet. Take that 515 and add 360 to it, and I'm going to get 875. So yes, these are coterminal. I just have to add 360 twice. And we did that in the notes, so there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, what if you have a negative 330 and you add 360 to it? Don't you get a positive 330? So these are coterminal. That's a yes. And now my last one, look at this. This is negative 240. Oh, this is also negative. I'm not going to add 360 to it. I'm going to take my negative 240 and subtract 360. And when I do that, I do indeed get, let me just make this look better. I do indeed get negative 600. So this is also a yes. So all three are yes, and you should write out why they're yes. Okay, if you just write down the word yes, I'm not going to be too impressed with your efforts. Okay, don't just do it in the calculator and then give me a yes or a no. Show me what you've done to prove that you have a good idea about this. Okay, so now let's read these directions carefully, because a lot of people miss credit on this because they don't answer the question. I need 2 positive and 2 negative. And then I also have to say in what quadrant the angles lie. So if I add 360, that will get me 410. And then I add 360 again, and that gets me 770. Okay, if I take 50, go back to the 50, minus 360, that gives me negative 310. And then subtract 360 again, that's going to give me negative 670. Negative 670. So let's highlight what I'm getting as results. Here's a positive coterminal. Here's a positive coterminal. Here is a negative coterminal. Here's a negative coterminal. Okay, what quadrant are they in? They have to be in the first quadrant because that's where 50 degrees is located. Okay, so quadrant 1 is what I want. Everything's going to be in quadrant 1. Okay, next one. Let's look over here. And I have 135. So I'm going to add 360. And that's going to give me 495. And I add 360 again. And that's going to give me 855. Okay, then if I take 135 and subtract 360, that gives me negative 225. Subtract 360, and I get negative 585. Okay, let's highlight what we had. So here are our positives, 495, and I should put the degree symbol for all of these. I got kind of messy there. And then we go back to get my highlighter. Okay, so then here's another positive, and then here are my negatives. Okay, what quadrant is this located in? Well, it has to be the same quadrant that 135 is located in, which is between 90 and 180, so that's going to be quadrant number 2. And now for the 3100, you have some options. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3,100, which is awfully big as it is, and subtract 360. If I subtract 360, what do I get? I get 2740, which is a positive coterminal angle. Then I'm going to take 2740 and subtract 360. Okay, so subtract 360 from that, and I'm going to get 2380, and that's a positive coterminal. Now, I have to keep going. So let's go to 2380, which I know is coterminal. And I'm going to subtract 360. I'm going to subtract it 5 times. What does that get me? Ooh. If I subtract, so if I say minus 360 times 5, that gets me 580. Okay, so I'm getting there, but I'm still not negative. So let me subtract 360 2 more times. So subtract 360 times 2. Okay, so I take my 580 and I subtract 360 times 2, and that gets me negative 140, which is my first negative coterminal angle. Then take your negative 140 and subtract 360 from that. What does that get us? That gets me negative 500. Okay, so let's figure this out. Which angles are my coterminal angles? Here's a positive coterminal. Here's another positive. I have a lot more positive, but I'm not going to identify any more. Here's a negative coterminal, and here's a second negative coterminal. Well, where is that going to, what quadrant is going to be? Well, the easiest thing to do is to take 580 minus 360. That gives me 220. So 220, oops, sorry, go back to here. 220 is where? Well, this is 270, this is 180. So 220 is in here, which is quadrant 1, 2, 3. So that's in quadrant 3. And I might as well stick with the Roman letters because Roman numerals, because I was doing that to begin with. Okay, so that answers those questions. Okay, so notice that for C, I had to do a lot of work, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with work. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to identify quadrants. Now remember, this is your grid, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Okay, this is 90, 180, 270, 360. Okay, 315, without doing any work, is in quadrant 4. Okay, so that's quadrant 4. Okay, 620. I think I should get 620 minus 360. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 360, and I get 260. Now I know that I am in quadrant 3. Okay, negative 310. Find the coterminal. This is plus 360, so negative 310 plus 360 is going to give me 50 degrees. That means that that's going to be in quadrant 1. Okay, look at this next one. Negative 880. I'm going to add 360. If I add it twice, that's adding 720. That's still negative. So I'm going to add it 3 times. Negative 880 plus 360 times 3. And that's going to give me 200 degrees. And 200 degrees is in quadrant 3. So again, you've got to use coterminal angles in order to identify the correct quadrant. Okay, look at this last one. 930, that is super high. I'm thinking if I subtract 360 2 times, that's subtracting 720. So let's do that. 930 minus 360 times 2 gives me 210. Okay, so I did 930 minus 360 times 2, and that gave me 210. And I know 210 is in quadrant 3. Okay, so that completes the homework. This is a really good review. If you didn't understand this, go back through it and make sure that you can own this material.